Hi, I'm Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities via a number of different modalities. This podcast is obviously one of them. We also have a Facebook group, and we can be found at liveauthentically.today/FB. I am super pumped because I have just released my first book. It's called SOAR, SOAR, and it's available on Amazon, an audiobook, paperback, and Kindle. So next time you're on Amazon, be sure to check out a copy. Also, I coach individuals. So I'm a spiritual transformation coach, and I'm also moving into group coaching. So on today's show, I am super excited to have with me Wendy Sterling. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Wendy is the leading divorce recovery specialist and founder of the Divorce Rehab. She helps divorced women go from I do to I did to I'm done and confidently create a roadmap they design for what's next. And she is going to tell us all about her story today and what she does on a daily basis to help empower others. So again, delighted to have you, that you're going to be here today sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge with us. But first, I start off all of my shows with the same question. And that question is, what does it mean to you to live authentically every day?
Yes, that is a great question, and one that about 4 years ago, I would have had no comprehension on what to say versus today. I'm actually very crystal clear on how it is that I live authentic each and every day of my life. And honestly, for me, it starts with knowing what my values are and being able to honor them each and every day. I do a lot of values work with my clients, and values are really something that when you're living in alignment with them, you're living your most authentic life, versus when you're feeling dissonance and not aligned with your values, you're living a life of dissonance. And this is about not who it is that we think we should be. I work in the field of divorce, and a lot of us lose ourselves and we become a version of ourselves that somebody else sees many times. And so when you're aligning with your own values, you're actually living based on who you are, who you want to be in your life. You're making choices from a much more authentic place. And what I also believe is that you're also able to actually feel more fulfilled in everything that you do. And it helps you to also build on your own confidence and your self-esteem. So I honor them each and every day.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me a little bit more about that process, because I know, life can become complicated with all of our roles and responsibilities. And, how do you sift through that? And how does one begin the process of crafting their value system?
Yeah, so I do a really deep dive with my clients around this because it is so incredibly important. First and foremost, a lot of times, just to kind of take a step back, when your body actually reacts before your mind picks up on the cue that something doesn't feel right. And many times the reason that you get uncomfortable is because there's a value that is not being honored. And so in order for people to really establish what they are, to even know how to go about comprehending what a value is, I actually work with my clients on a series of questions that I ask them that, you would not necessarily think are, when you look at it, you're like, oh, that's totally easy. Like, of course I can answer these questions, but they're not something that we're necessarily thinking about every single day. And what the answers to the questions establish are the adjectives or the words that are important to you, and the way that they also show up in multiple answers to the questions I ask. So questions like, what are some of the qualities that your friends, for example, see in you that they love? What are some of the things that you admire about the people you love to be around? And then you can also look at it from the other side of actually what makes you really frustrated or angry. And then the opposite is actually a value that may or may not be honored. And it's really, to me, I view values as almost like a compass. Like it's kind of like a mental, physical, spiritual compass that points us in the direction of our truest self.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it just helps us to live in alignment with who we are. But it's so important to do that process. I love that you do that because it just helps to bring awareness around
Exactly.
what our values are and what we need to align to.
Exactly.
So I would love to hear more about what you do on a daily basis to help people. But first, I'd like to review the chronology. So take us back to kind of wherever you want to start. I would love to hear, how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, that is an excellent question because where I am today is definitely not where I thought I would be. So interestingly enough, it's been almost 4 years to the day of when my entire life changed. And that day as well showed me that divorce can actually be an empowering experience that we go through to find our true identity and voice so that we are living our most authentic life and creating it from the most confident place possible. And I will never forget the day that I was driving home from an outing with my ex-husband now. And we were driving home from a couple's night out. And, at the time I was working in corporate America. I had built a 20-year career in ad sales. He was equally successful. We were that couple that everybody wanted to be like. We were the last couple that anyone would have ever thought, would get divorced. And, what I call it now is the Facebook facade, right? I projected out to everybody what I wanted people to see. And while I knew that our marriage was not in the greatest place possible, I also never expected to be punched in the gut as hard as I did that night. And when I realized that he had been making some really poor choices, it was a very large wake-up call for me. The wake-up call being that I need to start paying attention to my intuition, that it is something that has always been very strong, but for some reason I stopped paying attention a really long time ago. And at the same time, I also realized that it was time for me to start living my life for myself and to stop living it through his eyes, or having, and also being able to see my own reflection. And I'll also never forget when I stood in my power and I asked for my divorce. And I'm getting like full body goosebumps because at the same time, I was basically starting over. I didn't know who I was outside of my role in my marriage. I didn't know who I was outside of wife, mother. I looked in the mirror and I had no idea who Wendy was. And so that's when my journey began. And while I was in therapy, and I was also I was in therapy, I was reading self-help books, I was listening to podcasts, I was trying to get my hand, Brene Brown and Gabrielle Bernstein walked into my life at that point. And, I was doing a lot of internal self-work, but nothing was working really to get me over this awful, painful period that I was experiencing. And until a day where I saw a Facebook post from a friend who was a career transition coach, and she actually left her law practice to become one. And so I called her and we had a really beautiful conversation, and she educated me all about the world of life coaching. And what I loved about it so much was the ability to really focus on the future and what was next, because all I was doing was living in my head of the past. My therapist was keeping me rooted in my past. all I was doing every day was thinking, why isn't he here? How did this happen to me? I was horribly mean to myself, saying things to myself that I would never say to a friend, but yet for some reason we all give ourselves permission to talk worse to ourselves. And it wasn't until I hired a coach and also actually enrolled in the program that my friend did, that I started realizing that I actually forgot what it feels like to dream and to vision what is next and what is possible, and doing it from the most authentic place, which is what I wanted versus what was expected of me. And so from that day forward, I moved through so many emotions in a 3-day coaching course than I had the entire 8 months before in my healing process. And so I knew that there was something special. And I continued the work, and I, in under a year, got through all of the emotions related to the separation, the trauma of it, because it was so unexpected. And it enabled me to also get the courage to leave my 20-year career to do something different, because I knew that this was happening for me and I was meant for so much more than, being a manager and working for a company and bringing them millions of dollars every year. So I decided that my calling was to help women like me, to help women who are coming out of divorce or, walking into divorce, and to help them recover. And so I created my proprietary program, which, as you know, it's called the Divorce Rehab. And it's a combination, the methodology from my coaching program and my own experience to help, to help walk people through the 5 steps that I took to really start creating from a foundation that was authentically and confidently all mine. And it's been such an incredible ride. I've met so many incredible people. And the best gift and lesson that I learned was that my divorce actually happened for me, not to me. And so the way in which I approach my life is really looking for the silver linings. And that's something that I also instill in my clients, to stand in their power of that. So healing women from divorce is really what I do, and empowering them to reclaim their voice and identity to create their next best chapter is really who I am. So that's my story.
Congratulations. You have accomplished such an amazing amount in such a short period of time. And I
Thank
think
you.
it's so amazing how you've been able to transmute your pain. And I'd love to talk about this a little bit, about how I'd like to go back to the emotions that you were feeling in your darkest moment, whatever. And we don't even have to articulate exactly what that moment is, but if you can take yourself back there and think about what emotions were you feeling when you were at rock bottom, because I really want to call attention to this, because I know that so many of us are either there right now. So many people are either there or have been there or will be there. And I want to illustrate this to give people hope, to know that, rock bottom, wherever you are right now, even if you feel like that's where you are, that's not your final destination. There is a way that you can totally be a rock star and launch yourself out of this the way that you have. And in a short period of time, step into your greatness. And now you've transmuted that pain and you're helping other people. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So, but before we jump into like, these are all the amazing things that you do, which I absolutely want to hear about, let's go back to that rock bottom place. And if you can just share with me some of the emotions that you struggled with. I know every situation is different, but if you can walk me through those emotions and that process of how you started to gradually crawl out of that deep, dark hole.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to share. I'm very transparent about my story because I know that it will resonate with someone on some level. Somebody's going to feel, oh my God, just like me. That moment, it's so funny, I'm getting like full body goosebumps as I'm thinking about what I want to say. In that moment, he broke my heart. Like I felt a physical break. He and I'm very spiritual, much more so now post divorce. But thinking back to that night where I realized what was going on, my heart broke. I I didn't understand how a human being could do something like this to someone, especially since we'd been together for 22 years. And my first reaction was sadness. I remember being in the car with him at the time when it all kind of started imploding, and tears just started streaming down my face. And the most prevalent emotions that I felt in that particular moment were just overwhelming pain. I was heartbroken. I was so sad. I felt so betrayed. And I actually had a panic attack, which I had no idea what that was. I had never had one before. And I couldn't breathe. And it was really scary because, it was a combination of, like, it still chokes me up a little bit. It was a combination of, the panic attack was, how could he do this to me? And it was, how did I get here? And then I went into a whole thing of like, this doesn't happen to someone like me, right? I think I'm special. I thought I was, the special person that was immune to divorce, right? And then that turned into huge amounts of anger. And the anger then spiraled me into digging, which I know a lot of women do. Yes, there was infidelity. And a very big part of me wanted to dig because I wanted to be wrong. I wanted to prove my intuition wrong. And unfortunately, the digging provided more information than I could handle, and it proved my intuition right. I thought at the time that the more I knew, the less pain it would create, that it would be comforting to just know. And on the other side, I wish to God I didn't dig as hard as I did, because now I know everything. And, if I could go back to my younger self from 4 years ago and say, don't do all that digging, like, let other people do the digging for you. I would have done that. And what that ended up creating in my life was, I became very depressed. I became overly anxious. And I stopped eating. Chocolate and wine became my two major food groups. I lost, I'm petite, as are you. I'm 5'3" on a good day. And I lost 15 pounds in a matter of weeks. And my friends, thank God, stepped in. And my first step of getting help was going to the doctor and getting put on medication, because I couldn't breathe. I couldn't, I had 2 kids. I kicked them out, and I was primary caregiver. I had also started a new job the week after I discovered what he was doing. I started a brand new job in a leadership role, and with a boss who poached me from another company. And I just had no idea how to function. And I lied for a good 4 months after I started the job, pretending everything was great. And yet at the same time, she kept saying, like, you've lost so much weight. You've lost so much weight. And I was literally living in denial. I was so ashamed. I was so embarrassed. I didn't tell my parents right away, because I thought I would bring nothing but shame to my family. My parents are still happily married, almost 50 years. My sister's married. My grandparents were married. Like, there was no divorce in my family. And I had grown up in a house where appearance was everything. And I believe that a lot of my depression was from a place of shame and embarrassment. And it was really hard for me. Again, this is why I threw myself into therapy. I threw myself into self-help books. but nothing was working. And the medication did help because I needed to take care of my kids. At the time, I kicked him out, and he went to live with his parents, who lived a little bit of a distance away. So I was a full-time mom with a job, 2 kids in school, homework, food, all of it, and literally falling apart. Not allowing myself to feel anything because I couldn't. And it was all, I mean, honestly, it was the hardest moment to date of my life. And at the same time, it shows me how strong I am. And I know how strong, I'm sure a lot of people listening to my story who can relate. I didn't know how strong I was. I thought I was weak. I thought I was pathetic. I thought I was a failure. I thought I was unlovable. I went into so much negative self-talk that I couldn't stop berating myself. And it was really hard to hear from my friends because all I kept hearing was, it's his loss. He's an idiot. You're going to be better off without him, which when you're in that deep of a hole, that's not even on your mind. You can't even wrap your mind around you're too good enough, right? Because in that particular moment, you feel not enough.
Right.
And it took a lot of work. And at the same time, what I came to realize was it came from a place of really, I'd never really discovered who I was, that I had always lived my life through the lens of what other people saw me to be. And that realization was both devastating and at the same time empowering, where it was like you said, rock bottom. I could not get any lower at that point in my life. And all I could do was go up. And I was also really inspired to be a role model to my boys. I wanted them to know 2 things. You don't treat women like that. And number 2 is, with strength and perseverance, you can accomplish anything. And there's strength in asking for help. I didn't know that. I thought asking for help was weak. I hate asking for help. My whole life, I hated asking for help. And it was the first time in my life where I knew I needed more. And I thankfully, the universe heard me and handed me that Facebook post that day. And, it's funny because I still talk to her. We're still really good friends. And ironically, she worked with my ex-husband, and she knew the woman that he was, making very bad choices with. And I have such a special place in my heart for her because she saved me so much pain. And that's very much how I carry myself and my business forward. And my mission in this lifetime is to help women see how their divorce gets to be an empowering experience and not one that shuts them down and makes them feel that shame and embarrassment. And, no one should suffer. There's so many resources out there. There are so many of us. There's you, there's me, there's so many, right? That we're blessed to be a part of a wonderful community. And my biggest piece of advice to people is don't lone wolf it. Don't do it by yourself. It is not serving anyone other than your past, which is not where you want to be. And, I really encourage people to reach out, whether that be to a doctor or a counselor or a therapist or a life coach, a divorce specialist, somebody, and just be willing to be vulnerable and say, like, I can't do this by myself. Like, I really need help. Because I was in a very dark place, and the last thing I wanted to do was not be there for my kids. And if I wasn't whole, I couldn't show up for them. And so it taught me what the definition of selfish in a really positive way, because without me taking care of me, there was no one else that was going to, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that was something else that I had no idea about. It was not something that was instilled in me. So that was kind of my rock bottom
Yeah, and thank you for
moment.
sharing that. I know that that wasn't an easy place to go, but I'm so proud of you for being willing to go there and with all the emotions that come with us too. I mean, this is what this is being very raw and very real. And I mean, this is authenticity at its finest. This isn't,
Yeah.
oh, I've got, yep, I got divorced and now I've got this amazing business. I mean, you do have an amazing business, you've done amazing things, but there is still, some underlying pain, and it does elicit certain emotions. And that's what makes us real. I mean, authenticity is all about honoring the light and the dark, and
Yes.
us work through that and surrounding ourselves with support systems and people. You said, no one should continue suffering. And I wholeheartedly agree. It reminds me of that Buddhist quote, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Optional. Yep.
I love that. I mean, that quote has always resonated with me because it really highlights the notion or the idea or the truth that we always have a choice, right? We have a choice. If we're in that place of suffering, if we're in that place of guilt or shame or blame or sadness or anger or whatever emotion it is that keeps us from feeling good, keeps us from expanding, if and how we feel really is our best barometer. To the extent that we're not feeling good, it's up to us to make the choice to move out of that and to surround ourselves with like-minded people, like you said, therapists, life coaches, counselors, support group, whatever it is. But we're not accustomed to being conditioned to ask for help. We often feel like we need to toe the line, particularly as moms who are taking care of the kids, the house, etc., and maybe a business. We have to toe the line on our own. And the reality is that model doesn't serve anybody, right? If our pitcher is empty, that model doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't. That model has an expiration date. So I applaud you for recognizing that you needed
Thank
help
you.
and seeking help. And I mean, look where it's brought you today. So I'd love to launch right into you telling us more about what you do. I know you talked about it a little bit early on, but let's just say someone comes to you. What does this look like? Let's just say a client comes to you and says, I need help. I'm
Yeah.
just decided I'm going to get divorced. Help me.
Yeah. So, the one piece of my story, I think, I left out was that I ended up leaving that job about a year and a half later and started my business. So I took the leap of faith and started my business about 3 years ago. um, and so, when somebody comes to me and, I always offer free support calls, as we all do, right? Because at the end of the day, we may not be the right fit for them. So really when somebody comes to me, what I'm looking for is not only to hear about what their challenges and their struggles are based on where it is that they're at. I'm also trying to shift them into a place of what's possible. The reason being that, when people come and set up calls with me, my intuition tells me pretty quickly if I think that I'm the right fit. And even if I'm not, thank goodness for, colleagues like you and so many others that I have such an extensive network of colleagues and friends that many times I refer them out to other people. So for me, it's really about how can this person best be supported wherever it is that they're at. And if that's me, fantastic. And if it's not me, then who in my network can I provide to them where they can actually get support? And so in order for me to really be able to answer that question, I get to know them. I pay very close attention to the language that they use. And a lot of that tells me which program is going to be the best fit for them. I have 3 different ways that I work with clients, all of which get access to my divorce rehab program, which rehab is an acronym. So the R is about rediscovering your identity and voice. The E is about ending your pity party.
Mhm.
And the H is about healing your wounds and mourning all the things lost with your marriage coming to an end. The A is about finding acceptance. And then the B is about really building a foundation from which everything starts to grow. So that's where the confidence piece comes in, as well as learning how to set boundaries. And so in my highest level program, which is private coaching with me, you get that high touch. You get someone walking the path with you every step of the way. That's for somebody who really is in need of high touch and wants to move through it quickly and is motivated to do so. The second level is my group coaching program. So that's really for somebody who is invested in their growth, who needs a little bit more time and doesn't perhaps, they're not in a place where it feels as urgent, and they thrive in a group setting. So it's somebody who really is able to take the coaching, to take the program and do the work without somebody constantly having to check in with them. Although I do check in, there is an accountability piece. And then the low touch is someone who's like, yeah, I'm kind of in this place and I'm really good by myself. And as long as I have this, Facebook group to come into to just do my check-ins, like I've got it. So those are the three levels. At the end of the day, my style of coaching is also very unique. So I am a very bold coach, and it comes from a place of I'm not interested in keeping my clients stuck. That's what their friends are for. And my role as their coach is really somebody who gives them a kick in the butt when they really need to get their shit together. I say things that other people are afraid to, and a lot of times they know they need to hear, but they don't want to, right? But they know that they need to hear it. And so I call that tough loving. And that's what I bring to the table. And that style doesn't work for everybody. And I totally respect that, but it's what worked for me. And so that is what I bring to the table with my clients. And all of that is packaged together ultimately with accountability. So it just, honestly, it just depends where it is that they're at. Recovery to me starts from when they recognize that there's a breakdown either in their marriage or within themselves. So I work with clients who are in the should I stay or should I go phase. I work with clients who are in the I just filed, or they're in it, or they're on the other side. I have support groups as well. So when people go through the program, it's kind of like, okay, then where do they go? And they go into a different phase, which focuses on more of, dating and career and sometimes moving. So it just depends. So I stay in the flow with my clients to be able to support them wherever it is that they are. So there's a lot of different levels, and I use my intuition on these calls to really be able to identify where the right place is for them, that would best serve them, or perhaps it's a referral.
Love it. I love that you have so many different options available, and that you use your intuition to help guide your clients in the space where you feel like they would benefit the most.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about fear, because I know that fears are prevalent when we talk about decisions around marriage, divorce, etc. Should I stay or should I go? What are some of the most common fears? I know it's different for every situation, but what are some of the most common fears around divorce, and how can you help dispel some of those fears for people?
Yeah, so if I may just take a step back, I mean, I do a ton of work on fear. Fear and setting boundaries seem to be kind of my sweet spots, with a lot of the work that I do and a lot of the speaking that I do. So first and foremost, fear is actually not real. Fear is something you make up in your head. It is based on limiting beliefs, and it's a place that a lot of us default to because that's how we've been conditioned to live, which I call autopilot. And a lot of, you know, the way that I talk about fear is in a way of, you know, when you're able to confront them, it's almost like you're shining a light in the dark corners that you
Mhm.
don't want to admit exist. And what I recommend to my clients in the work that I do is really getting curious about what is in those dark corners and shining a light to really do some deep discovery around what are those fears about, when did they first come up, and what's really underneath what they are. You know, fear keeps us stuck and rooted in the past because it's comfortable. It's what we know. But without freedom from the past, what ends up happening is you kind of stay stuck in like a quicksand, right? And what happens when you get into quicksand? The more you fight, the more you fight, the more you sink, versus if you just surrender, you don't sink anymore. And with fear, you're actually sinking. Fear sinks you into the quicksand versus just having awareness and just stopping and getting curious about what it is that's in those dark corners. You know, to live in fear is really to choose to live under or in those black corners, to live in a state of dark. And unfortunately, you know, the one thing that I ask a lot of my clients is, you know, how is the fear serving you? And better yet, what's the price you're paying by choosing to live through the lens of fear? Right? And most of us pay a really high price for that, right? I paid a really high price. I stopped eating. I withdrew. I started, like, I got dehydrated. I got depressed. I withdrew. I said that already, but like, you know, it's really important to start paying attention and getting curious, not just about the fear, but about what it is that it's costing you, because you don't think about it that way, right? And a lot of times, you know, the fear in and of itself is something that, you know, you can either choose to let it run your life or you can take back the wheel. You know, fear is, it's kind of like death and taxes, right? It's inevitable. Fear is inevitable, but it's not real. It's completely and utterly made up. So I hope that answers that question for you and for your listeners.
Absolutely. And I've just been fascinated to witness and experience how when we become aware of our fears, how we can transmute those into power, right? And
Yes.
fear is ego based.
Yes.
So the fear is, you know, is something that comes from our ego. And the goal is to not totally eradicate fear from our lives, but it's to become aware of it and then
Yeah.
transmute it, right? To become kind of an alchemist and transform that into power. So it illuminates parts of us that where we don't want to go. It illuminates spaces where we don't want to be, and it gives us an opportunity to make a choice to step out of that fear and step
Mhm.
into a place that's higher than we otherwise would have been able to attain. So it really is a fascinating process of how the interplay between the ego and the soul, and how the ego can actually fuel our growth and transformation. It's absolutely
Mhm.
amazing. So I love how you help your clients do that. But now, you know, you're just super evolved, like super successful, like rock star businesswoman, helping other people heal. But do you ever learn from your clients?
Oh my God, every day.
Let's hear, like, what's an example? What's an example of something you've learned recently as a result of working with one of your clients?
So this may surprise a lot of people, what I've learned. And so you know, I'm very transparent. I was cheated on. And I had a lot of feelings and emotions around that. And I've also done a lot of digging and I've done a lot of my own education around that. And I think the greatest lessons that I have learned have actually come from my clients who are women who have cheated on their spouses. And what I have learned by working with them, it's interesting because at first they'll say, because they know my story and they've already created a limiting belief for themselves of, well, you got cheated on, you probably don't want to work with me. And my response is always, it's not about the cheating. It's about what inside of you is broken that made you think that was okay. And that's what I care about. So the lesson, one of the lessons that I learned from them is understanding the other side.
Yeah.
So it really, and I'm getting goosebumps again, it really helped me to understand their perspective, being the one that was the cheater. And I don't like using that, but was I don't even know what the right language is, but was, with,
The label associated with
yeah,
that.
but it helped me to understand that. And then the step after that was also, it enabled me to understand where my ex-husband was at that time. And it actually helped me in my relationship with him.
Mm-hmm.
And that was completely unexpected. In the beginning, I remember in the beginning, I was like, I am not working with people that cheat. I am blah, blah. And then it was really interesting. It was one of those things where I realized what the gifts were. Yeah. And I have 2 clients right now that I work with who were the ones who cheated. And it's been an incredible experience, really digging in with them to understand. I just think people are fascinating in general, but just to really understand what goes into that. And I also have clients on the other side who were cheated on, and helping them to understand what it is about them that perhaps seeks those types of people out. So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy. I feel like it's also kind of like my own little research project where I'm also able to kind of understand and see both sides. So that's what I would say is probably one of the greatest lessons that I've been given from my clients.
I love that. And I love that you share that because I know infidelity touches so many people. And, the initial inclination is to subscribe to that black and white thinking, right? You either cheated or you didn't, or it's right or it's wrong. There's 2 very distinct camps. Yes. But when we take a soul-based perspective, when we start to look at it through the lens of growth and transformation, we see it through different lenses. And there's huge opportunity to, the real growth happens when when you experience what you just described, when you attempt to step into someone else's human reality. We can never do that fully, obviously, but when we make the attempt to step into their reality and see the world through their lenses, and there's tremendous growth in that. I mean, huge growth. Empathy and compassion are 2 very powerful soul-based virtues that, this is fertile ground for crafting and for enhancing our empathy and compassion, which translates, it carries over into all other areas of our life, and we move forward. It carries with us when we move forward into other relationships so that we are able to see the world through other people's lenses. So I applaud you for just having the open-mindedness and still the vulnerability, even while working with your clients to continue your own healing, because it really is a lifelong process. I mean, these wounds, these scars, they never really go away. I mean, they're always there, and to the extent that we are triggered by something, to the extent that we experience emotions, to the extent that we, experience some type of emotional charge, it's just an indicator. Our soul is saying, hey, there's a little more work to do here. You can go a little bit deeper. And it ultimately turns out to be a gift every single time if we choose to see it that way. So I applaud you for taking that perspective and continuing to move through your client's healing and your healing as well. So
thank you. And that's so beautifully articulated too. I mean, I think that, I'm not sitting here immune to emotions as it relates. I mean, my ex-husband still hurts me, not intentionally, but there's things that come up that I don't, something came up even last night, no joke. But the difference is that I have the tools and I know how to work through it now. So the process is a lot faster. to be able to just kind of get through it. But that's my whole position, is that you really do the opposite of what you want to do, right? You want to talk yourself out of it. You're like, oh, why do you still feel that way? Why is that triggering you? Like, stop negative self-talk, versus just going, okay, there's something still there. What is this about? What is the emotion? And just like kind of leaning into it without judgment, and really, taking the steps to be able to work through the emotion and then be done.
Yeah, yeah, it's so important. Again, just perspective, seeing it through their lenses, and being open-minded, right? There's many, 1 + 4 is 5, 2 + 3 is 5. There's many different ways to get to the same place. So being open-minded and being really a creative problem solver. And it just reminded me, I'll tell you one quick story and then we'll wrap up. But it just, when you were talking about that, it reminded me how my former husband and I were having just a text exchange about something. It was relatively benign, but we both saw it through different lenses. And my immediate response was to write like paragraph after paragraph after paragraph as to why my position, my angle was right. And then I looked at my response and I'm like, no, like that's not being open-minded. So I just deleted it all and I just said, okay, thanks for your perspective. I'll sit with that. And he even noticed the shift at that moment, because his response was, wow, you're really in life coach mode there, aren't you? But I'm like, the old me, like wouldn't have done that. And that was part of my process and my taking inventory on, because infidelity touched my marriage as well. So part of this process, me doing my soul work, was taking inventory on different behaviors and actions, et cetera, that had a cumulative effect and led us to where we were. So, I've shifted in the way, that I've, communicated, and just how I operate all around, which is, again, every relationship is a gift. It always goes back to that.
It is.
So
I agree.
I feel like I could sit here and talk to you for hours.
I know, right? Like, we have so much more we could talk about.
So we will wrap up here, but I am so grateful for your time and for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure, and I hope whoever is listening, that you got some really good nuggets of information that either inspired you or supported you.
Yes, I am sure there's a wealth of information there. And if someone would like to get in touch with you directly, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so if you guys who are listening, if you want to just schedule a 15-minute call with me, please feel free to do so. You can contact me. It's a very easy URL to remember. It's schedulewithwendy.com. You can also look for me on my website, wendysterling.net, or if you are anybody and everybody is welcome to join my private Facebook group, which is the Divorce Rehab. Those are the 3 best ways. And then I also have my own podcast, which I'm excited that you will be on as well, which is the Divorced Woman's Guide.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you again for being here. It's been such a pleasure.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me and for having this conversation. I so appreciate you and your friendship.
Oh, likewise. Thank you. And to all of our viewers and listeners, I appreciate you as well. I'm so grateful that you have carved time out of your days to be here with me and Wendy and hear all of her knowledge and wisdom that she's had to share. Again, I would love to invite you to join my Facebook group. I am found at liveauthentically.today/FB. So join us there and you'll be surrounded with a group of like-minded people committed to spiritual growth and transformation. And also check out a copy of my book, Soar. Thanks everyone and have a great day.